Good morning, everyone. Take a moment to get settled and just tune in. Wait for a few people to join us. So, this morning's teaching, we're going to be exploring pointers from Dogen. Dogen Zenji is one of the most prominent, influential Zen masters who went to China from Japan to study. And he's been one of the most influential Zen masters of all. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be reading. There's an article I found online. I'm just going to be reading from some of the paragraphs, some of the passages from there. Very refreshing, very settling, very refreshing teachings. So we're going to be exploring this morning. And as always, we will have an opportunity to really reflect on these teachings, slow down, tune in. So this is an article called Fundamentals of Dogen's Thoughts by Kazuki Tanahashi in Tricycle magazine. The way is a common image in many religious traditions for the process of spiritual pursuit. It often implies that a seeker is bound to toil on a long path, wandering about, overcoming numerous obstacles before arriving at the final destination. There is a huge distance between the starting point and the goal. In the concept of the Mahayana, a developed form of Buddhism that spread throughout North and East Asia, this process represents the journey a seeker or a bodhisattva takes to become a fully awakened one, a Buddha. The time span between the initial practice and the final goal, enlightenment, is described in scriptures as hundreds and thousands of eons. Dogen accepts this image of a linear process of seeking, but he also talks about the way as a circle. For him, each moment of practice encompasses enlightenment. For him, each moment of practice encompasses enlightenment, and each moment of enlightenment encompasses practice. In other words, practice and enlightenment, process and goal are inseparable. The circle of practice is complete even at the beginning. This circle of practice enlightenment is renewed moment after moment. At the moment you begin taking a step, you have arrived. And you keep arriving each moment thereafter. At the moment you begin taking a step, you have arrived. And you keep arriving each moment thereafter. In this view, you don't journey toward enlightenment, you let enlightenment unfold. In Dogen's words, you experience immeasurable hundreds of eons in one day. This circle of the way, which is a translation of the Japanese word dokan, may be taken to represent the heart of Dogen's teachings. Dogen says, on the great road of Buddha ancestors, there is always unsurpassable practice, continuous and sustained. It forms a circle of the way and is never cut off. Between aspiration, practice, enlightenment, nirvana, there is not a moment's gap. Continuous practice is the circle of the way. This being so, continuous practice is unstained, not forced by you or others. The power of this continuous practice confirms you as well as others. It means your practice affects the entire earth and the entire sky in the 10 directions, although not noticed by others or by yourself. It is so. So Dogen is saying that the practice of all the enlightened ones, all the awakened ones, actualizes the practice of each one of us. And the practice of each one of us actualizes the practice of all the enlightened ones. The practice of each one of us, however humble, however immature it may be, is something powerful and indispensable for the entire community of awakened ones. Thus, each moment of our life is seen in the context of all life. Dogen's understanding of the interconnectedness of all things at each moment sheds light on the absolute value of the present moment. Between aspiration, practice, enlightenment, and nirvana, there is not a moment's gap. For Dogen, nirvana is not separate from enlightenment, is not separate from one's practice at each moment. In other words, there is no authentic practice that lacks enlightenment or nirvana. Nirvana is the non-distinction between large and small, long and short, right and wrong, appearing and disappearing, self and other. It may be called reality itself, or the absolute place beyond time and space. Such a realm cannot be grasped objectively. It requires an intuitive awareness that goes beyond dualistic, analytical thinking. It is where one is many, part is whole, a moment is timeless, and mortality is immortality. To experience this beyondness in the midst of the passage of time, change, and decay is a miracle. And for Dogen, this miracle is available each moment. For each moment of duality is not separate from each moment of non-duality. So Dogen says, not one, not two. Not one, not two. In other words, both in meditation practice and in daily activities. Not seeing, not creating separation. Maintaining deep consciousness. So here is the paradox. On one hand, when one practices the way of awakening, there is already enlightenment, moment after moment. On the other hand, one has to endeavor long and hard to achieve a breakthrough. Dogen says, continue realizing beyond realization. Yogi the cat is here and making some sounds. And if Dogen was here, then he would include that as well, as part of a very essential part of our discussions on enlightenment. Dogen emphasized the complete non-attachment to the goal of attainment. Dogen emphasized just sitting with complete non-attachment to the goal of attainment. So on one hand, he keeps urging students to strive towards a breakthrough. He understands the value of breakthroughs. He often told stories of his ancestors and about their breakthroughs. And yet, he's constantly emphasizing the complete non-attachment to the goal of attainment. This is the paradox. There's the famous story of Bodhidharma, the first patriarch of Zen to come to China. And he has this conversation with the emperor, which illustrates a fundamental dilemma that one experiences on this path. If one focuses merely on non-duality, one may say there is no good and no bad, and one may become indifferent and even destructive. On the other hand, if one only thinks of good and bad, cause and effect, one cannot understand non-duality. One cannot have deep wisdom. So here's the conversation between Emperor Wu of southern China and Bodhidharma. Emperor says, ever since I ascended the throne, I have built temples, copied sutras, approved the ordination of more monks than I can count. What is the merit of having done all of this? So the emperor is looking for validation, is looking for some kind of a pat on the back, saying, look at the amazing work I've done. And Bodhidharma says, there is no merit. The emperor says, why is that so? Bodhidharma says, these are minor achievements of humans and devas, which become the causes of desire. They are like shadows of forms and are not real. So Emperor says, what is real merit? Bodhidharma says, when pure wisdom is complete, the essence is empty and serene. When pure wisdom is complete, the essence is empty and serene. Such merit cannot be attained through worldly actions. Emperor says, what is the foremost sacred truth? Bodhidharma says, vast emptiness, nothing sacred. Vast emptiness, nothing sacred. Emperor, who is it that faces me? Bodhidharma, I don't know. The emperor did not understand. This experience is regarded as a source of all Zen teachings, the experience of emptiness, serenity, pure wisdom. In Zen, just because you're practicing non-duality does not give you the license to abandon ethics. There are very strong guidelines for monks and practitioners. Because non-duality is not separate from duality. If there is no future, there is no present. We come back to Dogen talking about the way as a circle. Each moment of practice encompasses enlightenment, and each moment of enlightenment encompasses practice. In other words, practice and enlightenment, process and goal are inseparable. The circle of practice is complete, even at the beginning. The circle of practice enlightenment is renewed moment after moment. At the moment you begin taking a step, you have arrived. And you keep arriving. In other words, you don't journey toward enlightenment. Enlightenment unfolds. Between aspiration, practice, enlightenment, and nirvana, there is not a moment's gap. Your practice affects the entire earth and the entire sky in 10 directions, although not noticed by others or by yourself. It is so. We are going to end the session with a few quotes from Dogen. If you are unable to find truth right here where you are, where else do you expect to find it? If you are unable to find the truth right here where you are, where else do you expect to find it? And Dogen tells us, do not be concerned with the faults of others. Do not see their faults with a hateful mind. Do not imitate others' faults, just cultivate virtue. The Buddha prohibited unwholesome actions, yet did not tell us to hate those who practice unwholesome actions. Forgetting oneself. This is actually my favorite Zen quote of all. He says, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things. When actualized by myriad things, your body and mind, as well as the bodies and minds of others, drop away. No trace of enlightenment remains, and this no trace continues endlessly. Dogen says, better to be defeated in the presence of the wise than to excel among fools. And this is an encouraging one. No matter how bad a state of mind you may get into, no matter how bad a state of mind you may get into, if you keep strong and hold out, eventually the floating clouds must vanish and the withering wind must cease. No matter how bad a state of mind you may get into, if you keep strong and hold out, eventually the floating clouds must vanish and the withering wind must cease. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Strive, awaken, take heed, do not squander your life. If you want to travel the way of the Buddhas and the Zen masters, then expect nothing, seek nothing, and grasp nothing. If you want to travel the way of the Buddhas and Zen masters, then expect nothing. Can we, for a micro moment, expect nothing, seek nothing, and grasp nothing? Your body is like a dewdrop on the morning grass. Your life is as brief as a flash of lightning. Momentary, vain, it is lost in a moment. Dogen says, it is too late to be ready. It is too late to be ready. Show up. In other words, this is the way I'm going to describe it. Show up. You don't have to be ready. Your imagination of what it takes to be ready. The circle of the way, the circle of practice. Drop all your ideas about practice. Show up. Expect nothing. Seek nothing. Grasp nothing. Do not ask me where I am going. As I travel in this limitless world, do not ask me where I am going as I travel in this limitless world, where every step I take is my home. Do not ask me where I am going as I travel in this limitless world, where every step I take is my home. And with that final thought, every step that we take is our home. Every step we take, every breath we take, every misstep we take is our home. Let us complete today's session.